Brooks here, hope you're all well. What you're looking at in front of you is my fully working Famicom console. Now the reason I've got it out today is there's a modification I want to carry out to this console. So if you stick around, I'll explain what that modification is. Okay, let me talk about the mod I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it. But first, I have to say I prefer the Famicom over the Western NES. The Western NES is too big and bulky. I mean, look how super cute the Famicom is. Nothing prepares you to the size of this. I mean, if you look at my hand, I don't have very big hands, but you can just get a rough idea of how big this console is. However, it does have two major drawbacks, and that's to do with the actual controllers themselves. If we look at the controller, the first thing we can see is it is permanently connected to the console. So if your controller breaks down, it's pretty much tough teddy. And the second thing is the length of the wire is pretty short as well. Now that may look pretty big on the video, but trust me, that is short. Now what I'm going to do today is chop the wire off, and I'm going to wire in a NES extension cable. So we'll be able to plug in and remove the controllers, and it will also give us some extra length on the actual cables as well. So yeah, stick around and I'll crack on with that. Let me explain what I'm going to do. Now I went online and bought two extension cables for the Western NES. Here they are, exactly the same as the NES we have here in the West. Now what I'm going to do is this female end, I'm going to wire this into the console, and it's going to stick out the back of the console like this, just a little bit like that sticking out, and that will allow me to plug in the controller. Now obviously the rest of the cable is going to get wired into the actual controller itself, and then what that will allow me to do is come along and just plug in the controller like that. If we take a look at the two Famicom controllers, the first thing we notice is there is a difference. Now on the Western NES, the controllers are identical, but on the Famicom, they're slightly different. If we look at controller 2 for the Famicom, the first thing we notice is it's missing start and select, and the second thing we notice is it has a microphone. Now at the end of the day, these two are wired pretty much the same. So they should be interchangeable once I wire this in. Now the reason that is I'm going to show you the schematic, and you'll see that the only difference between these two controllers is one wire, and that's for the microphone. What we're looking at is the schematic for controller 1 and controller 2 for the Famicom. What I want you to look at is this side is the user input side, and this side is the output side that goes internally inside the wiring of the console. Now if we look at the user input side on controller 2, we can see we're missing start and select like we get on controller 1. However, they are actually there, and I'm going to show you that. If we follow start and select on controller 1, we can see they originate from the shift register, and they come from pin 13 and 14. Now if we look at pin 13 and 14 on controller 2, here's 13, here's 14, we can see Nintendo has grounded them. So they are actually there in the controller, it's just Nintendo has disabled them. So if we take a look at the other difference between controller 2 and controller 1, obviously we've got some circuitry here, and this is for the microphone. Now what I want to do now is talk about the output of these two controllers. Here they are, is the output. These are internally wired inside the console. We'll see these two connections later in the video. Now if we take a look at these two connections, what we can see is pin for pin they are wired exactly the same. The only difference is the additional wire that carries the microphone output. So if we wire these two ports exactly the same for controller 1 and controller 2, then it doesn't matter which way round we get these controllers, we should be able to flip them round and them still work. It's time to chop those wires. There's no turning back now. Oh no. Yeah, my controllers are now wireless. Time to get inside this Famicom so I can rewire the controllers. As you can see, I've already cut the wires off. You know, don't want wires dangling all over the place. So yeah, it's super easy to get inside the Famicom. You just need to remove 6 screws. There's one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and the final one's here. Remove those screws and the back lid should just pop straight off. We're in like Flynn, as Dave Jones would say. Here you can see where the 2 controllers hook up. Here's controller 1, here's controller 2. Now I'm going to keep this wire that's in here and I'm going to cut it about here. Now the reason for that is I want to splice my wire round about here because I want to still use this post to wrap our new wire around, because that stops the wire being pulled out once it's wrapped around that post. So yeah, I'm gonna crack on with that. What I'm gonna do now is show you an image of how I'm going to completely wire these new controllers in. Sorry, the new wiring. Yeah, I'll show you that. I'll crack on with this and show you what it looks like once it's done. That's player 1, all taken care of, all wired in. All I have to do now is exactly the same for player 2. So I'll crack on with that and let you have a look what that looks like once I've done. That's controller 1 input and controller 2 input, all wired in. What I'll do now is exactly the same for the controllers. I'll crack on with that and let you have a look what that looks like once it's done. That's controller 1 all wired in. Let's do the same for controller 2. That's controller 2 all wired in. Let's get this all back together and give it a test. We're all wired in, as you can see. Looking quite nice. What I've done is I've loaded the Nintendo test program up so I can test the controllers. So let's start off with controller 1. So let's press up, down, left, right, select start and B and A. So controller 1 is working fine. Let's do controller 2. Now obviously there's no start and select on this one. So let's go up, down, left, right. Let's press B, A. That works. Let me see if my microphone works. Testing, testing, testing. Yeah, so the microphone works on controller 2. So I would say that's a successful mod. Now what I'm going to do now is swap these controllers around and give it another test, and it should work. They should work in opposite ports. So yeah, let me just crack on with that and we'll give it a test. I've swapped controller ports. Controller 2 is now in controller ports 1 and controller 1 is in controller ports 2. So yeah, let's give it a test. Now it should work exactly the same because it's wired the same. So if we take a look at the actual test program, up, down, left, right, obviously there's no start select, B, A. Now the microphone's not going to work because it's not wired in. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about that. So let's have a look at controller 1 in port 2, and let's go up, down, left, right, select start and B, A. Now select and start work because, as we saw in the schematic, they are actually wired into controller 2. They're just grounded on the chip. So yeah, there you go guys, we've got a nicely rewired Famicom controller ports. So yeah, there you go guys, all done. I now have detachable Famicom controllers. So yeah, there you go guys, hope you like this video. Please give it a big thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Sweet. Now go away because I'm going to play some Super Mario Brothers 3. Catch you next time guys.